The rookies went out for drinks, and officers Nolan, West, and Chen had become close friends. Over drinks, Chen shared just how difficult dating had become. She said guys could be awful. She'd meet someone who seemed nice. Things would be going well. And then the moment she told them she was a cop, everything fell apart. Most of them backed off immediately. Chen had already been warned against dating other officers, and now people were cautioning her about dating civilians too. At this point, she figured she might never get a date again. Then she met Caleb right at the bar. He was friendly, and unlike the others, he didn't seem put off by the fact that she was a cop. The next day, Caleb even came by the station to give her his number. He was the first guy in a long time who seemed genuinely interested, and Chen was on cloud 9. She probably would have stayed there if the station hadn't suddenly gone into lockdown. The station was about to host a serial killer, Rosalind Dyer. She was rare among criminals, not just because she was a woman, but because she didn't shy away from torture. Until now, she had refused to reveal the locations of 3 of her victims. But this time, she agreed to give the families closure on one condition. She wanted to be taken to the bodies herself. Rosalind claimed she couldn't remember the exact location. The bodies were buried somewhere in Griffith Park, a massive area spanning over 4,000 acres. She convinced the officers on her case to let her go into the park so she could retrace her steps herself. Rosalind got to enjoy the fresh air, and the police hoped they would finally get the answers they needed. It seemed like a fair deal, except to Detective Armstrong. He was the officer who had brought Rosalind down, and he hated the agreement she'd made with the Ada because it meant the death penalty was no longer an option. She would still spend the rest of her life in prison, but Armstrong didn't think that counted as justice for the victims' families. He wanted her dead, and Rosalind knew it, so she decided to toy with him during the drive to the park. She quickly realized Armstrong had a connection with Nolan, and she wasted no time exploiting it. She spoke to Nolan, answering just enough of his questions to seem cooperative while making herself appear vulnerable. She played to his white knight instincts and even convinced him to remove her handcuffs so she could take a sip of water. Seconds later, gunfire erupted. At first, the officers thought someone was trying to help Rosalind escape. But when they cornered and questioned the shooter, the truth came out. He was the husband of one of Rosalind's victims. It turned out the man wasn't trying to free Rosalind at all. He was trying to kill her to avenge his wife's death. But it was a reckless move. Now he was headed to prison for attempted murder, and his children had effectively lost both parents. Even from behind bars, Rosalind was still causing harm, and the trouble didn't stop there. She eventually led the officers to the sites where she had buried her victim. They found the remains they were expecting, along with an extra body. This one was recent, no more than 6 months old, which meant it couldn't have been Rosalind's doing. She had been in prison for 5 years, leaving the team with an entirely new mystery. Who was this victim? Who had killed them? And how did they end up buried at that exact spot? All signs pointed back to Rosalind. She wasn't the least bit surprised when the second body was discovered. If anything, she seemed pleased, almost smug. It was clear she had a connection to it. Perhaps she had a partner from her earlier crimes, or maybe she had recruited someone while behind bars. Back at the station, Detective Armstrong was determined to get answers. He entered the interrogation room confident that he would finally extract the truth from her. Rosalind had no interest in talking to Armstrong. Instead, she asked for Nolan because she wanted to play games with him. Nolan still carried himself as the heroic figure, and Rosalind was determined to tear that down. She toyed with him, pushing his buttons with her antics, but Nolan quickly called her out. He demanded the truth, and eventually, she revealed that she knew who the new killer was, and that she had disclosed the locations of her burial sites. She even mentioned that there was a fresh body near the site of her second victim. She was right. The police later found the body exactly where she said it would be, and it had a date marked on it. These fresh victims had dates on them. The first read, Dodd 6, 8/19, meaning day of death, June 8, 2019. The second was exactly 3 months younger, marked Dodd 9, 8/19. Following that pattern, the next victim was scheduled for 12/8/19, which was today. Now, the police knew for certain that someone was in imminent danger. They tried questioning Rosalind again, even pleading with her, but she took pleasure in their distress. Rosalind admitted that these new murders felt like she was committing them herself, and she had no intention of ending her enjoyment. The police needed another way to get answers. Armstrong went to the prison where Rosalind had orchestrated the murders, and eventually uncovered a code she had hidden inside a library book. The code spelled out the name Brian Coleman. Armstrong and several officers went to Coleman's home. They didn't find him there, but they did discover photos of Armstrong's late wife. She had died while he was working Rosalind's case, and Rosalind had always used that fact to taunt. Even now, it remained one of her favorite ways to get under his skin. Armstrong was forced to confront his past, while Nolan was able to make some progress. Nolan and Harper went to the morgue, where they discovered that all the victims had traces of exotic animal particles on them. That clue led Nolan to think of the old Los Angeles Zoo. The abandoned zoo was remote and isolated, the perfect place to take victims. Sure enough, that's where Nolan and Harper found the latest victim. She was still alive, and they were able to rush her to the hospital. The killer, however, had gotten away. He attacked Nolan when Nolan tried to give chase, and then disappeared. Even so, it wasn't a total loss. They now had Coleman's name. His face was out in public, and with the FBI stepping in to assist, it was only a matter of time before the serial killer was caught. The officers were sent home for the night. Chen went on her date with Caleb, while Lopez returned to a man who may, or may not, have attempted to take his own life. It wasn't until later that Brian Coleman's body was discovered at the zoo. In a shocking twist, he wasn't the killer after all. The real murderer turned out to be Chen's date, who would later go on to kidnap her. What did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below.